Welcome, folks, to episode number 43 of the No Conference for Old Men podcast where three old guys are talking Houston Cougars basketball with a bit of Big 12 coverage added in as well, and proud members of the GoCoogs.com network, the undisputed number one Houston Cougars content provider. We're here today with all three old men, Tom Lydiak, former coach, Bill Walker, former player, and myself, Steve Chang, analytics guy, for this episode. Well, as the team gets healthier with Francis and Sharp working their way back into the rotation, this UH team is back on a three-game winning streak and sole possession of the Big 12 standings after wins over Colorado on the road, 69-59, and then Baylor at home for a key Big Monday W, 76-65. That was not as close as the score would indicate. No nights off for the Cougars in this no conference for old men Big 12, with now a road trip through Arizona this week to play Arizona and Arizona State to hold on to the Big 12 lead. In the critical win over Baylor, Houston showed the potential in this team on offense, scoring a highly efficient 76 points in the win, where everyone got to play. But we still see fans actually state on various message boards how our offense can still never really measure up to our D. So the debate this week is basically, how good is this UH offense in 2025? So let's get into it. In dissecting our two critical wins this week, let's begin with a quick post-game analysis of the workman-like win over Colorado on the road. Then we'll transition to your thoughts on the Big Monday surgical carving of Baylor. Let's start with you first, Tom. What were some of the things you saw from a coach's perspective in the Colorado game?
Well, I think Colorado was 0-11 going into the game, so we did exactly what you're supposed to do to an 0-11 team. Is we got out of there with a W, injury-free. Didn't have Emmanuel again. JVA was back, even though he picked up three quick fouls right when he came back in. I'm not sure how long he was in there before he got his third one. The game started off the first probably 4.5 minutes. It looked like it was going to be a blowout. They didn't score until 15:34 left in the half. We were up 14-3. Even Kelvin was smiling on the sideline, and then the mood turned dark. They go on an 11 overrun. They tie it up. This game reminded me a lot like the Vegas game versus Notre Dame. You were watching the game. You know U of H is going to win, but you never can get too comfortable. You're waiting for the knockout punch. The knockout punch really never comes, but that's where we're at with this program when you get a 10-point win on the road in a conference game, and it leaves a lot of fans, not me necessarily, but it leaves a lot of fans, I wouldn't say grumbling, but, they're finding the Bunyan on Miss America again.
Yeah.
I did think we fouled too much this game, but it was a win. I heard Kelvin on his radio show say, when you go back at the end of the year and there's that W next to that game, he goes, there's not an asterisk there. He says they don't draw pictures to illustrate how the win was. It's a W. And that's what good teams are supposed to do against 0-11 teams. And by the way, Colorado is a team that beat UConn early in the year. Iowa State had a little bit of a struggle versus them, where I think Colorado had the lead, I think with 8-9 minutes left in the game. So Colorado, even though they're winless, they're capable. But we did what we were supposed to do, and got out there. It was good to rest Emmanuel, for this game, get his a little bit more healed and ready for that Baylor game.
Yeah, exactly. Bill, how about your views of the Colorado win from a player's perspective?
A closer win than most expected, including myself. But as I said last week, we're battling through a number of games in a relatively short time span, and we keep winning. And while Colorado has a very limited offensive team, they did have one great player, Julian Hammond, who I'd highlighted last week. He scored over 37% of Colorado's points. Other than Hammond's 22, including 5 of 7 on some really deep threes, nobody else on that team scored more than 6 points. Despite what some might say about the defense on Hammond, it really was another good defensive game. Kelvin has 3 staples: defense, rebounding, and turnovers. We played solid D. We out-rebounded a smaller team 38-26, including 18-8 on the offensive boards. And you can see that the guards are trying to be more aggressive off the dribble, and that caused a couple more turnovers. Even though we only committed 9, we might otherwise have committed fewer than usual. Cryer and Wilson had 5 of the 9, but this was also a game where Sharp sat. Javier played 4 minutes, and Roberts, Arsenault, Uzon, Cryer averaged 33 minutes for the game. So a lot of floor time for the starters, and so you may expect a turnover or 2 more.
Yep.
In what was basically a 6-man rotation that we played in Wilson off the bench. What I saw was that Uzon is and needs to be running the show as much as possible. A great game, 12 points, 5 boards, 6 assists, and 1 turnover in 37 minutes, which seems to be the norm. Roberts was unstoppable inside, shot 9 of 11 from the floor for 20 points. I thought that we could have gone to him more, and he could have scored 40 had he taken more shots. Arsenault was aggressive offensively, chipped in with 15 on 5 of 9 shooting. And, despite an off shooting game by Cryer, who's battling a knuckle injury on his shooting pinky, he still played. We almost shot 50% from the field in this game, thanks, Juwan, and 40% from 3. And I could get into more about our on-ball defense and switching versus a ball-dominant point guard, a solid shooting point guard, as we have and we will continue to face some of them. But we could get to that later. Overall, a solid road win versus a very hard-playing team.
Yeah, completely agree. From an analytics perspective, looking at this Colorado game, I stated in last week's episode that I viewed it as a just win and move on type of game, especially with Sharp still sitting out and Francis just coming back. On offense, as has appeared to be the case as of late with whomever we play, guys, Colorado was blistering from the three-point line, shooting 39% from 3 and ending up with an effective field goal percentage at 51%. A bit disappointing for us, quite honestly, coming from the worst shooting team in the conference. Fortunately, we were able to manage the game throughout by controlling the paint inside and forcing turnovers on 21% of their possessions. For us, we were really very workman-like on offense. 54% effective field goal percentage, 40% from three-point range. Plus, we back that up with our offensive rebound rate at almost 40% for the game. Defensively, we have definitely noticed some slippage as of late, especially when defending the arc, where every team we play seems to be having a season-high shooting night versus us from three-point range. But fortunately, we're not a one-trick pony on D, where we continue to force turnovers and block shots to disrupt our opponents each game. Now, for the big Monday showdown versus Baylor that I flew in for, both Sharp and Francis were fully back for this game, and we had our offense humming with very balanced scoring and minutes distribution in the 76-55 win. Let's start with you first, Bill. What were your thoughts from a player's perspective versus Baylor?
This was a game I predicted us to win by 14, 74-60. And while I was actually pretty close, a 76-65 win, I shouldn't have been. We could have easily won this game by 25, and we're up more than 20 well into the second half. What's crazy is that we dominated this game despite record numbers being shot versus us, versus a Kelvin coach. Baylor shot an absolutely scorching 58% from the field and 60% from 3. And the game was still never really in doubt at any point, and was even a blowout throughout the second half. And why, you might ask, especially against a good team? Well, I'm happy to tell you. First, we moved the ball exceptionally well, resulting in 17 assists, which is a very, very impressive number. Secondly, we turned them over a whopping 15 times, which is a lot for any team, but for a guard-heavy team, that was really impressive. And lastly, we shot well ourselves, 51% from the field, 42% from 3, and we only committed 7 turnovers. The result of such a really nice shooting game is something I'm not sure I've ever witnessed. 42 total rebounds for the game,
Yeah.
22 for us and 20 for Baylor. I mean, you just don't encounter that. And the reason, of course, is no missed shots.
Yeah.
You don't miss shots, there aren't available rebounds. A really balanced attack for us, which is great. We had 5 in double figures, and Wilson was the 6th, scoring 9. Their 1-3-1 defense, which they play a ton, helped limit Roberts' touches and held him to only 7 shots from the field. But clearly everyone else stepped up, and I'll continue, and I do it almost every week, to sing Uzan's praises. 34 minutes, 12 points, despite going 1 of 5 from 3. He didn't have a great outside shooting game, but 12 points, 6 assists, and you guessed it, 0 turnovers. I keep expecting his turnovers to go up slightly following the fact that he's really been handling the ball much more aggressively and attacking since the West Virginia game, but it's just simply not the case, and it's been really impressive. Tugler was aggressive, grabbing 8 of the 22 boards. Cryer hit 4 of 7 threes, which was good to see based on the injured knuckle. Wilson played his usual solid game on both ends, and Arsenault, despite some questionable decisions with the ball throughout, especially the first half of the game, hit 4 of 6 shots and helped in terms of our balanced scoring. Really, really balanced production on both ends of the floor, and a really solid win versus Baylor.
Yeah, exactly. Tom, how about your perspective from a coach's view?
Well, Baylor was playing their first game without their big post guy. I think he's like 6'10".
Yeah.
Josh, I have no clue how to pronounce his last name. I just know his first name's Josh. They didn't have any prep time because I think they played on Saturday also. They lose him on Saturday. You have one day to prepare. So they were kind of going through some filling out process with the new lineup, going small. I think at one time Omir was their tallest guy out there at 6'7". They tried their zone defense. I kind of call it a 1-1-3. Looks like a 1-3-1. They bring their wings up there, but it's not the old Baylor zone where Scott Drew would recruit 3 guys like JoJo Tugler that had the reach, like a 7'6" reach, and they would just almost be able to go from sideline to sideline, touching fingers. So we just shredded that zone. I mean, we got any shot we wanted, whether it's inside or outside. Like Bill said, we were up by 25, and after that, everything else that happened was purely academic. We torched them. I think the score was like 71 to 46. A couple of things, humorous things I wrote down is we were up 9 at about the 10-minute mark, and Malik just missed his second consecutive shot. JVA gets the rebound, and he throws the dagger to E-Man. E-Man nails a 3, and now we're up by 12. And then Uzan comes down, and he makes, I think it's almost consecutive and ones. Where he got fouled on a drive, and I put down here, TV Teddy took over for a couple of possessions. What'd he do? We had 3 straight calls for us. One was where Baylor steps on the sideline. Uzan gets fouled by Omir. Overall, this is a game I was concerned about heading into the game.
Yeah, me too.
Because Baylor scored 60 points in the second half versus Kansas, and I know, Stephen, you and I were talking about how good Kansas defense had been.
Yeah.
But anytime you can score 60 points on Kansas in a half, you got some firepower there. But underrated defense, I think it was mostly LJ on Robert Wright III. He did not look good, and it's a lot of it has to do with our defense. Kelvin was pumping up Edgecombe, and I think he was doing that on purpose. Kelvin in the pregame had mentioned that, Edgecombe will be the best player on the floor, and I'm sure he's just saying that to jack his guys up. He's probably not saying that exact same thing in a closed locker room. 5-star, much ballyhooed guy, and
He played
a little bit of
did play
impact
well.
on he had a little impact on the game, but overall, it was like Bill said, the ball was moving. We were sharing the sugar. The ball wasn't sticking. I'm not sure how the stats ended up, but at one time, with a couple of minutes left, we had 5 players with 10 plus points. And I'll give you another Kelvin quote. You come to U of H to play basketball, not to be a superstar, because in our program, the team is the superstar. We're at the point in our program where we're never going to just rely on a guy to get 25 or 30 a night. It's almost like death by 1,000 cuts, instead of just one big karate chop. We just keep coming at you with different players.
Yeah.
Hey, Tom, just so everyone out there knows, in case they may not be familiar with him, TV Teddy is the official Ted Valentine who definitely likes the spotlight.
Yeah, he had our game Saturday too, I believe, against Colorado. He did 2 games.
Oh, you're right. You're right. That's right. I forgot that.
Yeah. And for some reason, TV Teddy was banned from the NCAA tournament for about 4 years. He didn't get to do it, and I don't know what was going on there, but he got the nickname TV Teddy, but I think he's toned it down quite a bit.
Yeah, he has. I would agree. I think he's probably gotten that feedback as a number of coaches were complaining about him a few years ago.
He officiated the Arizona K-State game last night as well.
Yeah, which we'll get to. Now, for this game, from an advanced analytics perspective, especially on offense, this was just an extremely hot shooting night from both sides. From a pure shooting perspective, you look at Baylor, and honestly, they just carved us up, ending at almost 70% effective field goal percentage while shooting 60% from 3, 56.5% from 2-point range. Bill had questioned as well, how in the world did we win so comfortably? Because quite honestly, with less than 6 minutes left in the second half, we were up by 25, 71-46, as Tom had mentioned. Bottom line is we forced turnovers on 26.5% of their possessions and limited them to only 20% offensive rebounds, where they had been actually over 36% for the season. Then on offense, we too were blistering from the field with effective field goal percentage at over 60% for the game, shooting 42% from 3-point range and 59% from 2-point range. For UH, I just loved seeing the distribution of minutes with everyone healthy for a tough team, where no one played more than 34 minutes, and that was Uzan. And as I had talked about last week, wanting to play Arsenault more down the final stretch of the games that we've got left, we again made our biggest run to get to our 25-point lead while he was in the lineup playing the 4 position. The advanced analytics also backed up his stellar play, where he was by far the game higher player box score plus minus at a plus 14.2 for the game. So a big win versus Baylor, and the team should be well rested for the Arizona swing to follow. Pair that up with where Arizona lost last night to Kansas State, and we are back in sole possession of first place in the Big 12 standings. Now, as we quickly pivot to our other Big 12 game we zeroed in on, how about each of your elevator pitches on the Arizona at KSU game last night, where Kansas State held on for the 73-70 win? Tom, you want to go first?
Yeah, before I talk about that game, one more thing about the Baylor game. You might have caught it on TV. But hats off to JVA for making 2 free throws. I think we were up by 11 points, and Baylor had, I think, 7 or 8 team fouls. JVA catches the ball at the top of the key, and whoever was guarding him came out and immediately just fouled him.
Yep.
To put him on the line.
On purpose,
the TV camera picked up Scott Drew yelling to his players saying, "Good foul." And,
good catch.
And JVA proceeds to knock down a 1-and-1. So, you know what? Hats off to JVA. Not a very nice thing for Scott Drew to say. But anyway, getting back to the game, K-State, Arizona last night. That was a heck of a game.
It was.
Arizona, 2 for 22, I think, from 3-point land. That's either good news or bad news for us on Saturday. I don't know which. It seems like every team we play shoots the 3. They shoot out of their minds. K-State's on a roll. They've got it going. And who knows? This might be their peak. We might go back a month later and see if that's their peak. It'll remain to be seen whether they can keep up this stretch of play. But I did see their schedule, and I think the next 5 or 6 games are very, very winnable games for them, especially the way they're playing. Doug McDaniel, gotta love that little guy. He's I know in high school he was 5'9" and a $145. I'm not sure what he is now, and comes from Michigan. He was suspended last year for some reason. I'm not sure what it was, but whatever beef that Jerome Tang and Doug had early in the year, they must have.
Yep.
I know Tang hasn't really talked about it, but something must have started clicking. Coleman Hawkins, he was playing more like Sadie Hawkins for a while. Now he's, I wouldn't say he's playing like the $2 million man he is, because he's not worth that much, but he's not killing them like he did when we played him. He was almost like our best player when we played him last time, but he stepped up his play, and they're just getting contributions, right and left from their lineup. And they have a lot of confidence right now. It was a great game. It looked for a while there that K-State had lost their grip on it, and then they come back and they finished in a flurry and gave Arizona their second loss. So sets up for a great game on Saturday.
Yep. Looking forward to it. How about you, Bill, from a player's perspective?
Well, I'm unhappy. I'm actually very unhappy. Arizona lost. One, I'd like to have Arizona coming off a win and not have any type of chip on their shoulder when we come in. Two, even though they lost and they're now in second place, and this is a huge if Arizona can beat us, which they won't, they're right back in first place because we'll be tied and we only play them once and they win the head-to-head matchup. So the game on Saturday really is for first place right now. Arizona's got some tough games. They're at Kansas. They're at Iowa State. They're going to lose more games. So I really don't care that much about Arizona. But I do wish they would have. I know that there are a lot of people, most people feel exactly the opposite. Arizona turned the ball over 17 times last night, so we definitely need to force turnovers against this team, and we need to be aggressive on the boards. They had 40, so that's something that they specialize in. They're big, and we're going to need to be aggressive as we typically are and control the boards to the extent that we can. Tom, you mentioned that ASU was awful, shooting 2 of 22 from 3. The funny thing is, they were the better shooting team from 3. Kansas State shot 1 of 19.
I know.
This was as bad an outside shooting game as I could imagine, and it was painful for me to watch. One thing I thought at the end of this game, Arizona still had a shot at it with 7 seconds left, and I have written down here WTF in huge letters with a couple question marks. 7 seconds. You could get up and down the court in 7 seconds, and they forego a simple inbounds pass to throw the ball to half court, and McDaniel picks it off because it's almost like throwing a Hail Mary with 7 seconds left. And I thought to myself, Arizona's become a more disciplined team, and we'll get to this in a little bit under Tommy Lloyd, but Arizona's had problems in the past with disciplined teams, with good defensive teams, and they tend to not play overly intelligently, and this was as symptomatic of that as I could possibly imagine. I was absolutely flabbergasted that they threw that pass, and that ended the game.
Well, no, Doug then threw it back court, though, Bill.
Yes, but it wasn't called. So it's, but yes.
That's right. They didn't call that, did they?
No, they didn't.
Yeah. Oh, okay. I thought they.
No, they looked at it. They stopped the game and they looked at it, and then they came back and said, "Play on, we're good." Yeah. So it was not called.
Yeah. I mean, from an advanced analytics perspective, both teams shot, like you guys had both mentioned, under 10% from 3-point range, and both were scorching from 2-point range, both over 59%. The one key stat that told the entire story was, again, turnovers, where Arizona turned the ball over on 22.4% of their possessions, while Kansas State only did so on 13% of their possessions. Just a shocking turnaround for Jerome Tang's Kansas State team, now having won 6 games in a row. And within that 6-game stretch, it's wins over West Virginia, ISU, Kansas, and now Arizona, since their loss to us by 30 points at home. I mean, this is a completely different team. Now let's go to Houston's Arizona swing this week. At Arizona first, and then to Arizona State on Tuesday. Let's provide a quick preview and cover both games together. Bill, you can go first from a player's perspective on both games.
Arizona, Saturday at 1 o'clock, which is, I believe, 11 o'clock. I know that there's daylight savings.
Oh, yeah.
I know sometimes it's 11 o'clock, sometimes it's 12 o'clock in Arizona, but it's 1 o'clock Central on ESPN. Arizona right now, they're, as well as they've played, they're 17-7, they're 11-2. Now they're in second place after losing to K-State. But once again, one win over us from being back in first place because they'll have the tiebreaker. They've got 9 players that are playing 16-plus minutes, and I'll spare all of you the statistics and all the details on them. But all 9 are talented, and all 9 can get things done. I'll mention several. Caleb Love is their leading scorer, and he's by far their leading shot taker, but by quite a bit. 6'4" guard, transfer from Carolina. And during their miracle win at home against Iowa State, he was brilliantly described by Fran Fraschilla as that Chicago Cubs player, 300 home run, or hit. I think he said hit 35 home runs, but strike out 200 times. And I thought that was brilliant. And for you, Steve and Tom, since you're both about 15 to 20 years older than I am, you'll both know that player was Dave Kingman. Being that much younger than
King
you,
Kongman.
That's correct. Being that much younger than you, I only had his baseball cards, but I know that you guys know him well. You know, Love will hit a few threes against us, but if he hits 3 of them, it means he's probably attempted 12 to 15. The other guards and double-figure scorers for them are Jaden Bradley and KJ Lewis. They both defend, they both score well, and they'll be a threat. Their front line, we have Trey Townsend. He's a 5-star freshman. He can score inside or out. Henry Vassar, the 7-foot, he's a 7-foot power forward. He can also do it all. He will shoot threes. Good player. He can rebound. And Toby Awaka's their 6'8", 250-pound center power forward. He leads Arizona in rebounding. He leads them in field goal percentage. He's a true inside player.
And he's a load.
He'll be a threat, yeah. As always, Arizona's loaded with talent, and they're actually more disciplined than previous Arizona teams. But as I mentioned, they are still susceptible to disciplined defensive teams. They've been on a roll lately. They did lose to a disciplined team at home, UCLA, 59-54. So a team that's disciplined, hits the boards, doesn't turn the ball over, is very apt to beat Arizona, a.k.a. U of H. Arizona does turn the ball over 12 times a game, and they get sloppy with the ball, and we need to stay disciplined, hit the boards on both ends, avoid tons of fouls, which could be called in this game, and we're good. We're going to win this game 71-62.
Wow. Pretty big margin there.
Minimum.
How about Arizona State?
Arizona State, Tuesday night, and surprise, surprise, we're not on ESPN Plus. We're on ESPN2.
Oh, shocker.
Yeah, no kidding. State's 12-11. They're 3-9 in conference. They're in 15th right now. I think they play TCU before they play us and play them at home. So I'm assuming that they're going to win. and that would keep them at 13-12, keep them over 500 overall. Probably the thing that'll interest people the most about ASU is that they're coached by Bobby Hurley, who you can either, I won't even say love or hate. You either tolerate him or you hate him.
Yeah, agreed.
When he was at Duke, I absolutely just abhorred him, just hated him. Since then, and since his team is going to be absolutely zero threat to us, I'll tolerate him. This team has some talent. They've actually got a fair amount of talent. They're just bad. They score 73 points a game. They only grab 36 rebounds a game. They commit almost 13 and a half turnovers per game. And they're not a great shooting team. I think they're actually quite high in Ken Pom. I think I saw that they were 62nd. And I'm not sure if that's still the case. But
it is 62nd.
It is, okay. Yeah, they have 6 players at or above double-digit scoring, and after those 6, they've got nobody scoring over 4.2. So they basically play 6, and that's it. Not much depth at all. They're a small team, and we should just eat them alive inside. Their leading scorer is B.J. Freeman. He's a 6'6", 2 guard, 13 points a game. But he only shoots 41% from the field. He leads them with 126 threes attempted. He shoots 35%. So he's one of those guys that you would think that we would hold down. But based on the way others have shot against us recently, we'll see. Their other guards are Alston Mason, who leads them with 3.5 assists a game, but isn't a great shooter. And then Jason Sannon, a 6'5", 5-star point guard from not the university. He's just from Vermont, the state of Vermont. Shoots the ball poorly from 2, but he's almost a 40% shooter from 3. And then they've got a guy off the bench, 6'3" guard Adam Miller, who does shoot 46% from 3. So when he comes in, he's a guy to watch. Up front, really just 2 players. Bashir Jihad, he's a 6'9" senior power forward. He's their second leading scorer, second leading rebounder. He also averages a whopping 3.1 turnovers per game. The other is Jaden Quaintance. He's their other 5-star freshman. They've got 2 playing for them. He's out of Cleveland. He scores 9.5 points. He leads them with 8.2 boards, and he also blocks almost 3 shots per game. He's a talented guy, and he'll certainly be on the floor quite a bit. Bottom line, Arizona State, as I said, they've got some talented kids, but they're all new. They've got no starters back this year. Chemistry, we'll see. It's been kind of up and down. They're sloppy with the ball. They're not great shooters. They do, however, defend pretty well. This game will be exclusively defined by how well we bounce back after the Arizona win. I have us beating State 74-63. I had us beating Baylor 74-60. So same number of points for us, 3 more for Arizona State. And
all right,
get a road win and another road win, and then it's on to the brutal part of the schedule.
Yeah. How about you, Tom, the 2 Arizona games from a coach's perspective?
Well, Bill mentioned Fran Fraschilla talking about Caleb Love being like Dave Kingman. If you're an older Astro fan, you'll remember Kingman. I can't remember he was playing for the Cubs or the Mets. He was having some arm or shoulder issues. I think he was playing left field. But we all remember him trying to throw a guy out at third and the ball sailing in the stands. He missed his target by a long shot.
See, I knew an old guy like you would remember him well.
Yeah, Dave. They call him Kong Kingman. Now get to Arizona. This is not your usual Tommy Lloyd, softer than dog shit on an August afternoon, a typical Tommy Lloyd coach team. They actually have a little bit of toughness to them.
Yeah, agreed.
I like Visar. I think he's brought that toughness. Awaka does too. Trey Townsend is power forward that they got in a portal from Oakland University. You guys will probably remember last March when Oakland beat Kentucky. A lot of people remember that D2 guard for Oakland hitting, I think, like 9 or 10 threes against Kentucky. But it was Trey Townsend. They would get the ball to him at the elbow, and then he would just go to work. He was a really, really good player for Oakland, but things just aren't clicking with him in Arizona. I don't know. It's just like the offense doesn't click with him. I think they're actually better. He sat out the last couple of games with an injury, and I think they're actually better without Townsend. So in our case, hopefully Townsend's healthy and he gets to play a whole lot, because that means that Awaka or Visar is not going to be on the floor as much. Bill and Steve, you guys both alluded to Caleb Love. He's like since his days at North Carolina. We know at North Carolina, nobody ever can like pinpoint the deal, but Love was part of that team that was preseason number 1, and they didn't even make the tournament. Just horrible chemistry issues with him and RJ Davis. But Caleb Love, he's kind of like the football quarterback that every time he passes, somebody's band is going to play. It might be your band, it might be the other team's band. Caleb Love is kind of like that player in basketball. He can literally shoot you out of a game. But then again, as we know in that Iowa State game, he can have a terrible shooting night. And then the game went in overtime, and he hits these 2 bombs, 3-pointers that were just like daggers to Iowa State. So he's a mercurial guard. Didn't have the greatest game against K-State the other night. Some other players I think that Bill mentioned. KJ Lewis, also really, really athletic player. He brings some toughness to them too. They brought in last year a guard from Bama. I think his name is Jaden Bradley. They lost one of their guards to Illinois, and they kind of replaced him with Bradley. And then there's that 5-star freshman. I think his last name is Bryant, a really good player there too. So it's going to be at the McKell Center. In my opinion, McKell is one of the best venues for basketball. I think it holds like 14,000. People really support their Wildcats there. So expect it to be a raucous crowd. Expect it to be a back-and-forth game, but also expect the Cougs to pull this one out.
Absolutely.
I think I have it winning by like 173-72. Hopefully it's not that close, but I have us winning this one. And then on to Arizona State. I kind of see this game as being along the lines of a Colorado game where the game is semi-close. You know, you're kind of waiting for the knockout punch to happen, and it kind of never comes, but we end up winning by 9-10 points. You guys mentioned Bobby Hurley. You just, not shaking hands with Arizona for some, I don't know, fictitious reason. Just anything to play like the victim or people are against us, that kind of mindset, just like his brother.
Yeah, agreed. So just quickly from an advanced analytics perspective, Arizona has been hot since conference play has begun and appears to be our main challenger for the Big 12 title. They're number 14th now in KenPom and are 11-2 in conference play. They're also number 17th in adjusted offensive efficiency and number 14th in adjusted defensive efficiency, while we're now at a new season high number 6 in adjusted offensive efficiency, and we've dropped to number 3 in adjusted defensive efficiency. So this is going to be another battle of heavyweights in the Big 12 with 2 elite and balanced teams playing against each other. Not going to go through any of the other analytics here, but as we've all mentioned, Arizona can be a little bit careless with the ball at times on offense. So he's going to be Houston taking advantage of that and trying to get some easy scores. Based on the metrics, this is projected to be a 2-point win on the road for the Cougs based on KenPom. I view this as a key game that will determine the Big 12 champion. And given the extra days of rest after our big Monday game, we should be really ready and focused. And I agree with the metrics and predict a 2.70-68 win for the Cougs. And then for Arizona State, this should be considered, I guess, what you can call a trap game on the road closely after a big Arizona game. Arizona State's been really spotty. And, from an advanced analytics perspective, all you need to know is that they are miserable from 2-point range. They don't offensive rebound, and they turn the ball over a ton. So based on the metrics, this is projected to be an 11-point win on the road for the Cougs by KenPom. I think our team may be a bit worn down after the Arizona game, so I think it will also be a close one. I'm predicting a 9.67 to 58 win, and it's another one of those just win it, move on kind of games, folks. So since we got through playing a stellar offensive game with Baylor, how about we all weigh in on how good this offense has looked this season so far? Many fans have continued to grouse about our offensive challenges this season as well as throughout the Sampson era. We focus so much on D and have been consistently top 10 in the country the last 5 years on the defensive side. On offense, we've never really shot the ball well, but we rate highly because of our relentless offensive rebounding. And we've talked about the prototypical profile of a national championship team. It's typically been top 10 on offense and a top 20 on defensive team. So how good is this season's offense? Many fans have referenced our Final Four team with Grimes as the best offense of the Sampson era. But how does this team's offense look to each of you from a player's as well as a coach's perspective? And is this offense good enough to win a national championship this year, given the competition? Tom, why don't you kick things off from a coach's perspective? Have you seen any tweaks scheme-wise or whatever, and kind of what's your take on how good this offense is and whether we can win it all with this offense?
Well, I'll start off with, if you go back, at least 20-something years ago when Kelvin was at OU, people groused about his offense there. Matter of fact, some people joked that he should have hired an offense coordinator. Futile. I mean, you can't do everything well. You got to pick something that you want to be good at and spend your majority of the time on that. And ours is defense, rebounding, and then taking care of the ball. I mean, if you turn the ball over, you're not going to play. It's like the running back who fumbles. A good coach, they're not going to play him. Take care of the ball. So Kelvin has his standards. He calls it the Holy Trinity: defend, rebound, take care of the ball. But like I said, you can't be great at everything, so you got to pick something you want to be really great at, and ours is defending and rebounding. And I think on the offensive end, because of that, Kelvin keeps it as simple as he can. Let players make play. You recruit good players, and then you allow them to make plays. I don't see anything really different that we're doing, like from an X and O standpoint. We do just like everybody else does, the pick and roll stuff, penetrate. They call it race and space basketball. Spacing's offense is spacing. But if you look at our team, we're playing different competition these last couple of years, so it's a little bit more difficult to compare this team to teams that played in the American. I don't have any analytics. I just go by the eye test. But when I watch us play this year, it does seem that we're more fluid. We're not having as much trouble getting off quality shots. A lot of times it seemed last couple of years, we would run our stuff. Sometimes maybe LJ or E-Man would probably have an open shot a little bit early in the shot clock, but they would pass it up, and then we'd end up with shot,
shot.
as the shot clock's dwindling down.
Yeah.
And I've heard Kelvin say he wants LJ and E-Man, if they got an open shot, they need to take it. He's told Terrence to be more aggressive.
Yeah.
To take as many shots as he can. And, when I just look at the eye test, we actually have Juwan, scoring down lows. We have that option too. Milo's who can, he just kind of like probes and snakes his way in there, and he's not going to blow you away with speed and athleticism like maybe Shed and Kingston Flemings will do next year. But he's crafty. He finds a way to get to the basket. And he's an underrated three-point shooter. I had no idea that Milos could shoot the three that well when he came to us. And, of course, there's always the factor that we give so much on the defensive end that it's only natural that it's going to probably affect your offense a little bit when you're just really that zoned in on defense. But if I had to just go by the eye test, I'd say, this is probably the best offensive team we've had, if you factor in the competition that we're playing. Terrence I think, is the X factor for this team as far as the ceiling goes. LJ, we've seen what LJ could probably do at his ceiling. We probably kind of see what Emmanuel can do and Juwan can do, and Milos and Uzan, but we just don't know how high the ceiling for Terrence is. Once he can reach that point where he's pretty much consistent like LJ and Eman, then this team can be special offensively and end up coming home with the trophy.
All right. So you do think the offense is good enough this year to win it all?
Yeah,
All right.
no doubt. If your shots aren't falling, you better be a great defensive team and you better be a great rebounding team if you're missing shots. So we're the type of team that could survive a bad shooting night just because of that reason.
All right. How about you, Bill, from a player's perspective? How good is this offense?
Well, 76 points a game, which is, it's average. 13 assists, which is good. 9 turnovers per game, which helps us immensely. And numbers that have really risen, 46% from the field, which is extremely solid, and 39.5% from three, which is outstanding. And that's something that we may not have, we didn't have in the past. We've got multiple shooters, and that really helps if people sink in on Roberts, who's been outstanding inside. And once again, we've got a point guard who can, A, get the ball to the open shooters, and B, knock down open shots himself. But we don't lose offensive possessions due to turnovers. We're shooting well. We turn over the opponents, and we out-rebound the opponents, especially on the offensive end, which leads to vastly more shots attempted than the opponents are taking. And we move the ball really well, and we're a very, very unselfish team offensively. So we're going to hit the open man when he's there. Cryer isn't going to think, well, I haven't gotten off enough threes tonight. I haven't scored enough. I mean, if he sees Francis unguarded underneath, the ball's going right to him. If there's an opportunity to go into Roberts, the ball's going right to him. If it's moving the ball back to Uzan on the point after he's gotten it to, and not just to Cryer, to Sharp, to Arsenault, to whoever, the ball is going to move to the open person, and more so than at least I've ever seen, we're really pretty well focused on getting the open look and getting it to whoever is open, because everyone on the floor is capable of scoring. The negative, we can go through shooting slumps, and I like it. I really liked it that we've been going through Juwan more, and he can kick the ball out. He's been really great, especially when he's able to, spin off the right side, go up with his left hand. I mean, he's been outstanding. However, the big thing, and this really kind of reared its ugly head when we were at West Virginia, was the fact that our guards were so perimeter focused, and it almost looked like we were unable to cope with really aggressive defenders at the guard position from our opponent. We were having trouble getting the offensive started. We were trying to scramble to get off shots at the end of the shot clock, and Calvin pulled Uzan. He really lit into him, and you could just see Uzan became more aggressive. Cryer became aggressive. Arsenault became aggressive. Sharp did as well, and unfortunately got injured. Our guards are more aggressive offensively, and Uzan is the key to that. And as long as that's happening,
yes,
I think that helps everyone. That helps us. That helps our perimeter players be more effective. It's going to help Juwan dominate inside. It's going to free up Tugler to get more offensive rebounds. It's going to free up Javier to be unguarded and get passes inside, or to also get offensive rebounds. And I love the fact that our guards are becoming more aggressive, especially our point guard. And the fact that Uzan doesn't turn the ball over just makes me want him to be even that more aggressive offensively, because he's going to hang on to the ball. Yeah, I think we're more than okay offensively, and I've been saying since day one that we are going to win it all this year. What I was alluding to before this, Steve, was I thought it was funny that you brought this up as a topic, because you guys may or may not remember this, but this was maybe the, I don't know, 8th, 9th or so, 10th maybe podcast last year, and one of the mediocre teams. We won the game easily. And I was going through everything, and all three of us were talking about how dominant we were defensively on the boards. And I said, if there's one thing that I had to pick on, it was the fact that we had missed some free throws and we missed some wide open, relatively short shots. And you guys jumped on me. You were like, you were saying, this is not an offensive team. This is a defense and rebounding team. That's what Calvin preaches. And Tom, you had mentioned you would use the analogy of a restaurant that claims to be a good restaurant, but has, like, I don't know what you said, either innumerable or who knows, 40, something like that, entrees on the menu. And it's like, how can you be good when you try to do so many things well? It's impossible. And number one, I think we're playing well offensively. Are there areas where we can improve? Yeah, absolutely. But I think Calvin's got the team playing well offensively. I think he's got the team playing well defensively. I think he's got the team rebounding, maybe not rebounding to the level that we have in past years, but with the team that we have, I think we're rebounding well. We're aggressive.
No, we are.
We control I think you can be good in all areas. We're clearly, without question, we're far superior on the defensive end and rebounding. But that's not to say that we don't have a good offense, because, at 46%, almost 40% from three, Roberts playing well and, quite honestly, dominating in a number of games inside. I think this offense is good. And like I said, after you guys attacked me for bringing up the offense last year, I found it comical that U of H's offense is being brought up as a topic tonight.
Yeah. Well, Bill, I think this year's team is different. And I would say this is an offensive-oriented team. And I think we've also seen from the last 2 years where you can be balanced and you can be great at both. I mean, UConn was great at both for the last 2 years, and they won handily. So if you look from an advanced analytics perspective, folks, this year's team is statistically by far the best offensive team of the Sampson era. We're number 6 in Ken Palm in adjusted offensive efficiency at 124.3. Now, what that 124.3 means is it's adjusted based on opponent level, and it basically measures number of points your team is able to score per 100 possessions based on Ken Palm. Next closest team of the Sampson era to this point from a ranking perspective was indeed our Final Four team in 21 that lost to Baylor, and they were ranked number 7th in Ken Palm in adjusted offensive efficiency. But this year's team is shooting better than that one from both 3-point range and 2-point range. Plus, the raw score on that team was only 118.3. This year's team is a full 6 points difference per 100 possessions, which is huge when you're talking about statistics. This has also been by far, as you guys had both mentioned, our best 3-point shooting team since 2018 when we had Corey Davis, Amani Brooks, Wes Van Beek, and Rob Gray. But compared to that team, we are offensive rebounding at a way higher clip now with Tugler, Francis, and Roberts in the lineup. Combine that with our least turnover-prone point guard of the Sampson era in Uzan, who's currently at a 4-to-1 assist-to-turnover ratio. And you've got by far our most potent offensive team of the Sampson era. Now, this offense, is it good enough to win when it comes March? That's the question that everyone wants to know. Based on recent historical data, I came into the season believing that if we could improve our adjusted offensive efficiency score to above 121 for the season, which is a full 2 points improvement from our best historical season under Sampson. Combined with our usual stellar D, we would be good enough to win it all. Season is obviously not over yet, but now into mid-February, we are a full 3 points per 100 possessions beyond that mark. If you look at the last 5 national championship teams, UConn, adjusted offensive efficiency, number 1 in 24 at 127.5. In 23, UConn, adjusted offensive efficiency, number 3 at 120.8. 22, it was Kansas, adjusted offensive efficiency at number 6 at 119.2. In 21, it was Baylor, adjusted offensive efficiency, number 2 in the nation at 125. And then in 2019, it was Virginia, adjusted offensive efficiency, number 2 in the nation at 123.4. So, folks, basically, if we keep this up at 124.3, and I believe we will, this will end up being our best offensive team of the Sampson era and definitely within the range of what you expect to see in a national championship. So I'm hoping for folks that hear this, no more grousing about the offense for this team. This year's team is an offensive juggernaut at number 6 and at 124.3 in efficiency. So that's it for our number 43rd episode of the No Conference for Old Men podcast. Hope you all enjoyed it. And again, would really appreciate it if folks would follow, subscribe, or collect our podcast, depending on your podcast platform of choice. We're also available via the Republic of Football podcast feed from the folks at Dave Campbell's Texas Football as the only basketball-centric podcast. We're at the GoCoogs.com website for those that prefer to digest the content that way. We appreciate the continued support from all, and please give us a follow on our Twitter account, No Conference for Old Men. Thank you all again for listening, and be on the lookout next week to download and listen as our next episode drops. Take care, everyone.